And welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live here at Citizen Television. We're talking national cohesion here today. Very important in the countdown to 2022. And joining me here live is the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, talking about the way forward. And Reverend Doctor, I was asking, a lot of people are asking, in what state of cohesion are we as a nation right now?
Well, that's a good question, and we need to see how we can assess this, the state of cohesion. As I said a little earlier, we have embarked on this process of determining the national social cohesion index. Mm-hmm. And this is really what will tell us. But I would say that we are not doing too badly, but certainly we need to do much more in order to be as cohesive as we should be. Now, the biggest challenge that I see and to us and really to all those who believe in and want to see a cohesive society here is the challenge of devolution. If we are not very careful, counties could become ethnic enclaves, which if they are inward looking, and knowing that it is possible now for a Kenyan child to go to primary school, secondary school, university education, get a job within their county. It's not the time that in a number of counties there are universities, almost every other county. And therefore, that's the challenge, that how do we ensure that these are not ethnic cocoons? And that is why, as NCIC, we wanted to work with the counties, with the county governments very closely. Yeah. Particularly when it comes to the equality in opportunities and the services. Because the Constitution provides that and the Constitution anticipated this challenge, that we could become ethnic enclaves, and said 30% of the establishment, in the counties should be people from communities other than the dominant ethnic community there. We are following this, and we wanted to now do in all the counties. Where are we when it comes to the inclusivity? We are a very diverse country, ethnically, religiously, etc. And now what we want to do is to work with the counties and say, we really have an opportunity where we could help Kenyans to become truly Kenyans. So that each of the counties, and we did a study of this, and we found that more than half of the counties, in fact 3/4 of the counties, were not compliant in having 30% of the establishment.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
It's a problem. The other thing we are doing is in the institutions. Universities, we started with public universities, where we will also look at the employment, etc., how inclusive, are these. So these are part of the elements that would constitute the cohesion that we wanted to work with.
Yeah, Jem, how would you describe the main political leaders and the formations they lead? Are these leaders, are they cohesive?
I would be very frank here and say they are not cohesive to the level that we would like to see them to be. And that is why, and I wanted to mention this, Jeff, here, that part of the roadmap to elections, Bila Norma, is to have national symposia. And we have planned for 7 symposiums, if you will. We'll bring political leaders. This is going to be one of the major national symposiums where we really want to engage the political. This now we are talking of leaders of political parties. So we begin to work with them, including really asking hard questions. Are you happy with, you know, the level of, say, acceptability of your opponents? You look at them as opponents, not enemies, and especially when they are of different ethnic communities. And we want eventually to come up with a charter with political parties. And that is why we are, the other agency that I wanted to mention is we are working very closely with the registrar of political parties. You know, so this is part of them. We are also going to have a national symposium with the border leaders. Mm-hmm. You know, there is a national association of border borders. Yeah. Border borders have become one of the most, I would say, powerful, if you will, institutions, not only economically, but socially and politically. And we wanted to agree with them, how do you behave towards, you know, the elections of 2022? Are you going to accept to be ferrying goons and all that, or, you know, or are you going to participate in a process that will help Kenya to really be happy that we are moving in this direction of peaceful elections, bila norma, together? So that's another one. So
and you think they'll comply? You think they will?
We wanted to engage them and then agree. And again, each of these, we wanted to really sign a charter or a covenant, if I can use you know, the word covenant. And then we'll use that as the basis on which we will then ask them to account.
What about at the top level, Chairman? From the president to his deputy, former prime minister, the leaders that we all know. Because Kenya is all about politics. Politics is like a religion to us.
It is.
Do you plan to engage them as well?
Absolutely. And one of the very first symposia that we are going to have is for leaders of that level. The heads of the leaders of political parties. And we wanted to have a criteria. Any registered, because Kenya has, you know, very many political parties, but any political party that has several MCAs, members of parliament, etc., these are what we wanted to bring. And in fact, this has already been planned, and we want to engage them at that level, the highest level, and so that we can work with them even in terms of the candidate we want, if you will. They should be the ones that will help us in weeding out, you know, the unwanted candidates, if you will. Yeah. So we are going to engage them at that high level.
And if someone says, listen, Chairman, you're being a little optimistic here, you're just being too optimistic, what do you tell them?
Yes, being very optimistic, maybe even having faith, you know, in what is going to happen. But as the Bible says, faith without works is dead. So optimism alone, faith alone will not take us where we want it to go. What are the works? Yeah. And that is where we want really to think very seriously along the lines we have said. So we know optimism alone can be naive, you know, but we wanted to see good works that will help us to get to where we want to go with the elections bila norma.
Absolutely. Chairman, look, in 2007, 2013, 2017, the police were accused of perpetuating violence. Are you going to have the security services on your radar as well?
Absolutely. We are going to have that, and we actually have started. At the by-election in London, there were security officials who, I would say, misbehaved, if I put it that way. We have summoned them, and we are going to make sure that they will answer, you know, because everyone has to account for their actions. They might have the excuses, but we have to put them, you know, we have to make them explain themselves why they did what they did. They mistreated some people, including, you know, some politicians.
And if you summon them and they don't come, Chairman?
Oh, no, they can't refuse to come because the NCIC is the summons that we give are like summons given by a judge of High Court. So if they refuse, then they are in contempt. And if they're in contempt, they can go to prison. So they always come. Oh, yeah, they have to come. And we are dealing with the 2 cases of some politicians who we summoned, they didn't come, and we are now going to charge them with contempt. So it's actually quite, you know, we have that power. Yeah. Yeah. So we want them to know that you can't just refuse to come. And therefore, so we'll deal with security officers as well. And the good thing is that none other than the CS, Dr. Fred Matiang himself, has said, and in one of those, as you remember, I said there is, he has created a higher platform of agencies who will be working with towards the 2022 elections. And one of the things that came up is we must talk with the security officials and tell them that they cannot really be allowed to get away with the kind of behavior that I've mentioned.
And they're responding, the response is?
I mean, the IG himself said clearly, we are going to enforce this. And once they know that, because we are talking of course, a very disciplined, you know, once they know that I can't get away with it, they will, you know, in fact, those are the easiest to deal with, I must say. Because all that it's needed to do is an order. This is it. This is how you are going to behave in the political parties, etc. If you digress from this, you have to answer. I think those are the easiest to deal with. Yeah. Politicians are the most difficult to deal with, I must say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chair, also, how do you deal with land issues and historical injustices? You know, this dates back decades. How do you plan to deal with that? Yes.
You see, we know that as NCIC, we can only go so far if we are doing it alone. But, and this is in the plan we launched today, we said that we have to build on the synergies that we have and the networking. And one of those we are working very closely with is the National Lands Commission and the IEBC. Because in the conflicts that we are dealing with, I would say, Jeff, 80% has to do with the land, one way or another. And we talk of hotspots here, hotspots there, the cattle rustling, etc., but we have realized right across the board, land is a big trigger of conflict. And so we have agreed with in fact, a good example here is how we are dealing with the land as a trigger of conflict in Mandera. And these are 2 clans, you know, Bare and Murule. These 2 clans, they are fighting simply because they can't agree, you know, this is the border. Now, some of them, and this is where we have sometimes constituency borders being different from administrative borders. So we are working with the administration, with the Lands Commission, with the Survey of Kenya, and with the IEBC. And we have actually formed a subcommittee of that that's multi-agency I mentioned with. And the Murule now, we have agreed. And they said, look, IEBC will come, these others will come, tell us this is the border. We will agree. And it has taken years.
That's all they want.
That's all they want.
It's just to be
In the last 4 or 5 years, more than 20 people have been killed specifically because of that. And so we had a meeting in Mandera where we have a sheikh who has actually brought together all these leaders. All this is sponsored by NCIC. And so what they said is, look, for us, we have no problem, as long as we are told by you. And so we have agreed with the 4 that I've mentioned. We have formed a technical committee, and they are working on that. So this is also a model that we have. Even situations like, in my own area, in Tharaka and Meru, there is a small border there that you have an MP who goes, and establishes an office across the border because they say, okay, this is my constituency. The other says, no, this is our administrative, boundary. So these are some of the issues that we have to deal with. So the issue of land is very, very critical. Secondly is the historical injustices based on land. That we feel that there is need to come up with, we don't lack the data, okay? There are many studies, there are commissions, there are recommendations, they haven't been acted on, but we really believe that time has come for us to look at this very, very seriously, because even in those situations where land was not a big issue, because of the population, you have a family, you have a mzee who has 5 sons, they divide their blood, then they divide it again. Before you know it, people are killing each other because of this. So at the social level, at the political level, at the economic level, land is the biggest trigger. And that is why it takes a concerted effort of all of us to work together with all the agencies.
Yeah, land, Chairman, and also trust. There's a lot of mistrust amongst Kenyans now, and a lot of suspicion, if you will. How do you build back the trust?
Actually, you have put your finger on the most difficult issue here. Lack of trust of institutions, of the state, of, institutions, including even religious institutions, And this is not only Kenyan, by the way. This is actually as a humanity, we have reached a time in history when people have less trust in institutions. But now, talking of Kenya, I would say that, and we have, in fact, that is one of the main areas that we have identified, the lack of trust. And so we are going to deal with this. There are many ways in which we can deal with it. We'll work with other stakeholders in this. We need to begin to have this as part of the education system. Talking of which, the other thing we have done, and perhaps I needed to mention this in answer to this question, Jeff, is that we have managed to have cohesion and integration included in the curriculum of our schools. So this is very important because this trust has to be built on. It's a process. As I said today, trust is not, you cannot eject it like, have you been ejected yourself?
Twice.
Twice, eh? Yes. No, twice, now you are immune. So I wish we could do that with the trust. Or with the peace. Or, we know these are difficult because the human beings are very, very complex. But we cannot eject peace into people. It is a process. It's part of the education. It's part of socialization, because there was a time in the past when really trust institution, once you have an institution, you trust it fully. But the leadership has let the people down. I think we have, the trust has gone down more because of those who have been trusted first, but then they proved to be people who cannot be trusted. And once that happens, to recover that, it will take time.
Chairman, you mentioned religious leaders. you were part of a powerful group of religious leaders in the 80s and 90s who spoke out against KANU's excesses.
Yes.
What happened? What happened since then? I'm sure you must look at today's religious leaders and say...
I do. Yeah, I mean, and that question I've been asked that question many times, you know. Perhaps during my time as the General Secretary of NCIC, you know, we were about the only national institution before the change of the Constitution that had not been systematically disabled, if I may put it. That's why we did what we did. But now, after that, you know, there was a change of constitution, political parties. The democratic space was expanded. Civil society organizations came on board, and they began to do, you know, the arena that was occupied by religious organizations, especially institutions like NCIC and all that. Today, that arena is very crowded. You know, each one doing this, the other. So that voice that we had that time has been claimed by others. And I think this is where the issue, this is where the issue lies.
That's a good point.
And because of that, therefore, you know, I think they have to, you know, relate differently to the state. You know, some of the excesses that were there under one-party rule are no longer there. And so, you know, we are very critical of the church leadership today, but I think we should be more understanding. But this is not to excuse them, by the way. No. There are still some issues where now they are needed even more, like this of trust. You know, it's a question of the agenda, setting the national agenda of these, you know, religious organizations or religious leaders, and even the civil society. Even today, you will see even the civil society, you know, voice has gone down. Yeah. But we shouldn't say that there are no challenges to which they have to respond. There are. It's a question of discernment, and this is where I would say that's where the biggest challenge to church leaders of today lies.
Chairman, look, at the end of the day, do we have the political will, as Kenyans, do we have the political will to attain national cohesion?
Yes and no. Yes, because I think there is I've heard statements by top politicians and all that, really saying that, you know, Kenya is the only country we have, okay? Yeah. We will not go anywhere, you know. And therefore, we have to agree on how to live together harmoniously, in a cohesive way, peacefully, because we need each other. And I think that is not contested. I've heard this from the highest, you know, leadership in this country. Okay? Then you come to, you know, the situation on the ground. And you find other politicians, other leaders who, you know, like there was a group of young people from Eastlands here, east part of the country, who had a skit where they were showing what happened when elections comes. The election comes and they say, we have been working together, lakini sasa, elections have come, you go ni watu wetu tu tunataka peke yao. So you have that, you know, that contradiction between what we hear in terms of political will being sometimes, I would say, watered down by the other behavior of politicians. So it is a context where we need really to come together. But I think there is a, you know, a reasonable level of political will, but we need that political will to be higher than what it is.
Yeah, they say, kwa ground, mambo ni different.
Kwa ground Kabisa.
Chairman, let's look at the magic wall. Let's see. People have been tweeting in all evening, asking you questions and all kinds of comments. So let's quickly go to the magic wall. Tweets coming in very thick and fast. Ongidi Hempstone says, we should advocate for a free, fair and credible election. Just let justice be just. We won't be talking about election bila norma.
Okay.
Point. It's a tough thing, letting justice be just. Davy Mungai 01 says, we need to come out and work with Kinamama, CBOs, youth, community leaders. We have tried working with them, but it's hard to reach out to them. Why is that hard to reach out to them, Chairman?
I don't know, because we are reaching them ourselves. Really, I would say as NCIC, we are reaching those, you know.
Are they responding?
In fact, they responded very well. They responded very well. And we must continue doing the same. Yeah.
Nyantika Chester says, I don't think we should still be using tribe, ethnicity as a parameter in planning. For example, a census. The political class has negatively used such data for political expediency, and such further accelerates negative ethnicity in Kenya. Do you agree?
I agree.
Absolutely. Biro Kello says, NCIC should be given power to prosecute, and hate speech should be painfully punished or lead to nullification of the politician's candidature. List of shame is of no use to the breed of politicians we have currently. But you're saying they are paying attention. They
are paying attention. I really would say to my friend Biro Kello.
Yes.
The first part, I fully agree with him. And, you know, especially in terms of painfully punished, you know, these leaders, and be nullified. That is exactly what we are talking about, that they don't even wait to be nullified when they are elected. They shouldn't be candidates in the first place. And that is what the wall of shame really is pointing to. Yeah. That if you are known to be that kind of a person, then you shouldn't even be eligible. What kind of a leader we are going to have and that's why political parties become important here. They should not clear candidates or make them candidates when they have these issues. And Bello Kero, I think, is right there. They should be nullified if they get to be elected, but even before, they shouldn't even be candidates in the first place. Yeah,
but remember, Chairman, we had a whole chapter in the Constitution on that, remember? Chapter 6?
Yes, Chapter 6 is our biggest instrument that we have, and we are using it. And as I say, you know, what Bello Kero was saying in terms of painfully punishing those, you know, there are 3 levels at which the punishment will be. On the political level, they shouldn't even be candidates. On the social level, they become pariah, you know, so that people will know, you know. And then on criminal, then they should actually be tried and even end up in jail. Those are the 3 pillars of consequences that we are working with as we do this process to elections bila norma.
Good. Chris Gret says, I would rather we get to the ground, community, grassroots, and reconcile Kenyans. Let's not waste time with the politicians on the wall of shame and the like. They don't care.
They don't know they care. We have proven that they care. Yeah, so I think he didn't listen to what I said. They care.
They do care, huh?
They do care.
Well, I want to see that. Okello Mwalimu says, NCIC Kenya should be reminded that, to a politician, any publicity, whether positive or negative, is important. Having hate mongers in the Hall of Shame won't help. Let them lobby for prosecutorial powers instead. They must equally represent, or rather present, watertight cases in court.
Yes, and as we said, yes, we want to bring watertight cases. But let me also say that we have actually been lobbying for prosecutorial powers. And even in Parliament, there is a bill where we have requested for that. And we will be happy to have prosecutorial powers, but the Constitution, of course, provides that it's only the DPP who can prosecute. But what the catch really here is that unless we have these cases dealt with speedily. There is a sense in which those who have gone through, we have investigated, we have gone to the DPP. The DPP has gone to court, and in many cases, some of the people there are compromised, and the case just fizzles out. So prosecutorial powers alone is not enough, because there's a way of, that's why, and it's interesting to see that 75% of what came there is politicians are the problem. Yeah. And the way to deal with them is not, a wall of shame. I think it's a combination of all this. That's what we need. With that, I think we'll make it. Yeah.
With a year and change to the next general election, Chairman, finally, a year and change, can you reassure Kenyans out there? They're watching you in their millions. And everyone, everyone's worried. Everyone gets to that point where they say, oh, goodness, it's that time of year again. Can you reassure them next year's election will be peaceful?
I know. And they have every reason to be concerned. This is cyclical, every 5 years. And in fact, 2 years to the elections. The anxiety level of Kenyans really goes up because of the fear of what will it be like, And this is not good it's not good for the health of the country as a country. And this is what we really want to deal with. Because when, and now you have some Kenyans beginning even to say, no, maybe closer to the elections, I will move from this place and go elsewhere until after the elections. This is not good, for the country. And that is why I believe that it takes all of us, those who really believe and want to have peace, and that's the majority of Kenyans. In fact, a small minority is the one that caused all the problems we are talking about. And that is why today I said that our strategic plan, our biggest ally here is Wanjiku. And I think we must use this time now to show, Wanjiku has not fully discerned the power that the people have. I come back to that analogy of football, where Wanjiku can be the referee and the spectator, because most of the times it's just a spectator. What we are saying as NCIC, we would like to give Wanjiku the capacity to be the referee, to be the one who will show the red card to the players. Yes, that's the capacity we want to give them through these elections, the roadmap, as well as this strategic plan, which I want to give you as a gift.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chairman. Elections bill and norma.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chair.
So what we are saying is, of course, it's a very, very challenging job here. Okay, we say, yes, Wanjiku, but people say, now you see the abject poverty of our people. So when they accept, something literal so that they can vote for you and all that, don't blame them. But I think they'll be better off if we have a country that is not run by political thugs and the people who take advantage of the situation. And one of the really troubling situation here, we have talked a lot about politicians, etc., but we have seen a very dangerous trend in this country of kidnappings, of people taking advantage of the poverty of our people and using anything and everything to get money. So that as I remember, Professor Kibuda Kibwana wrote an article on a truly national philosophy of Kenya, to which I wrote a rejoinder, and agreed with that, and it was in the Sunday Nation. And I said, and I came up with this, building blocks towards a national philosophy, using Article 10 of the Constitution, national values and the ethos, and then Chapter 6 and the NCIC Act. If we do this so that we can really begin to see what is the kind of Kenyan we want. We in NCIC, those 70s and 80s, we learned the country in the Kenya we want. And the Kenya we want with this constitution, we have, more or less that, is the Kenyan we want.
The Kenyan.
That is where there will make a difference.
Chairman, thanks so much for the strategic plan.
Most welcome, Jeff.
I like this: one people, one nation, one destiny.
That's our motto.
And then violence-free 2020-22.
That's right. Elections bila norma.
Elections bila norma.
Yeah.
Chairman, we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
We hope this country can really set a precedent.
And thank you very much. And really hope that the media, because the media is powerful, we want the media to work with us and help this country to go where we want.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Stand by one moment.